And welcome to our ACCE Learning Network Hangout. This is Series 4, Episode 23 for 2013. Hi, Amanda.
Hey, Roland.
The place we can connect and network with ACELN.
And as usual, if you're watching us live, you can post us a question by going to todaysmeet.com/ACCELN, and on Twitter you can use the hashtag ACCELN.
And I'm Roland Guesthausen, a high school teacher, e-learning leader in Victoria, Australia. I'm on the State Council for the BLTV, and I've got my new superhero. It's Dr. Pamela Gay, who's an astrophysicist. She's on a podcast that I kind of modelled our show from. It does with Fraser Kane, who's from Universe Today. And it was an awesome workshop. We made these giant plates of flour, and we threw lollies into it to simulate that meteor was crashing onto the surface of the moon and made all these measurements. And that really is exciting when you throw lollies and learn astrophysics. Remember.
Did they taste okay after that?
Yeah, they rolled in the chocolate first. The idea was that you could actually see the surface of the moon breaking apart with the chocolate, and that gave you some measurements like depth and splash, and it's all science and space stuff, and then you can blow the dust off and eat the chocolates.
Sounds good. I'm Amanda Raplin, an e-learning coordinator in Brisbane, proud QSite member and Passport member, and of course internet parody superstar. Okay, not really, because my video hasn't gone viral just yet, but feel free to check it out. It's on our Wikispaces page, and it's me singing Frozen and filming a live kind of lip sync at ACEC 2014, which was lots of fun. Speaking of ACEC 2014, that's what our show is about tonight, and we have a couple of lovely people that we got to see in real life at the conference in Adelaide, so we might get them to introduce themselves to our viewers. Jackie.
Hello, I'm fine back. I've been having some problems on my end, but I am the now ex-marketing coordinator for ACEC 2014, and I've got a life back now, so
that must be
thoroughly
exciting.
Enjoyed my time there.
Excellent.
It's nice to have a life
and it was
back,
just amazing. It was amazing watching you pulling everything together and getting that communication right at the conference as well. So many things to think about all at once. You did a great job. And we also have you're most welcome. We also have Nick joining us this evening. Nick, do you want to give us an intro?
Hello, my name is Nick Jackson. I am one of those e-learning type people in schools as well. And I was involved in the conference on a voluntary basis. I was the mentor for the digital leaders who were students involved in various guises within the conference.
And it was such an amazing addition to have the students involved as well. One of the final statistics I actually tweeted out at the end of the conference was that the student Twitter account was the most mentioned account other than the official ACEC 2014 and one of the keynotes. So the amount of interaction that was occurring with those students in the back channel and also physically was really, really impressive. So it was so wonderful. I'm hoping we can continue the student involvement to the next event as well. So I'm certainly recovering from my big holiday and learning adventure. I may or may not have caught up on all of my sleep just yet. It's definitely a lot to process.
We're still washing all the socks that we'd used up. It's been awesome adventure.
Absolutely. Now, how about we get into our discussion for this evening? So we're talking about the conference and reflecting on it. Now, the theme was Now It's Personal. So I wanted to ask each of you guys, and maybe I can think about my answer to this as well. What was it that made the conference personal for you? What was your highlight?
Go, Jackie.
Go me? Mine's easy. Mine was actually putting faces to all the names and all the people I've been communicating with, seeing your lovely selves in person for the first time in, what, 2 years it had been.
Exactly.
That was the personal connection. The fact that we had keynotes who were so willing to get in there and mix with everybody. It just felt like, I think, the analogy that was made, that it was like a big family getting back together. I'm only very new to the family because this is only my third ACEC, I think it is. And the first one was very much as a participant 10 years ago. It is a family reunion. It was lovely to see that family coming back together, particularly at things like the conference dinner and the President's dinner, as well as all the connections that were going on throughout the conference. I think that was what made it personal for me, and the fact that it's still ongoing.
Hey, you stole my answer.
I'm glad I got to go first then.
Nick, or maybe Roland, what are your reflections on what made the conference personal for you?
Go, Nick.
I think it'd have to be the students, and you would expect that answer from me. That's where I spent all of my time. I didn't get to any workshops at all, apart from my own one I delivered. I sat through, the only thing I saw was the keynotes really, and then it was with the student involvement. So, you know, as regards on a personal nature, that's the journey I was on, and that's really why I was there to enhance their opportunities and the opportunity for the conference and for educators to see what the involvement of students could be within that sort of space, and whether it could add to the thinking and add to the development of different ways of looking at the problems that we face in education and the issues that we're supposed to be concentrating on. And for that, like to watch that happening and to try and facilitate that, and to indeed to sit back and have to bite my tongue at times, when the students were offering opinions which I didn't necessarily agree with. That was an education in itself for me, and that's what made it personal for me.
Awesome reflection, and I think I can really relate to that. The impact of the student involvement as well. I had some really fascinating discussions with some of the students, reflecting on what it was like to be at a teachers' conference, and I had a few of them say things to me like, it's really weird, teachers are learning how to do these things, but we kind of really know how to do that, so why don't they ask us? Or why do they need to sit in these things where they're told this is how you do it? And there was a really fascinating reflection that was on diversity of opinion, and the student said, I was in this session and someone got up and said, no, you're wrong. And I was like, no, you guys just have different perspectives. And then we had this really fascinating discussion about how a diversity of opinion can lead to a greater, deeper knowledge and different perspectives that you wouldn't get if it was, just someone that agreed with you all the time. And I thought that was a really interesting discussion to be having with a student.
I think that was highlighted with the plenary panel too, with the two girls who spoke first, and we had one just saying, well, all of what you're saying about a digital identity is well and good, but what about if kids don't want it? And to be challenged like that, just watching the Twitter feed when that comment was made was really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It's nothing new in a way, is it really? But it's something that we sort of, those of us that want to enhance technology, those of us that are adamant that that's the way forward and it's all going to be brilliant, we just ride roughshod over the students that just sit there and want and don't want to expose themselves even in an online space. I was having a conversation with the librarian at school today about what had happened, and I told her about that thing about the online space, not wanting to expose yourself, and as Jordan talked about on the panel, and she said, wow, she said, I thought that, in all the research I've read, she said, I thought that was an opportunity for those kids who didn't want to stand up and voice their opinions, an opportunity to do that because they could hide behind the technology. but it obviously isn't the case for some of them, and that in itself is, she's just like, yeah, I never really thought about it like that. I thought it was the opposite, so there's so many things we haven't thought about yet.
I wonder if it's part of like sorry, Roland, part of like a mixed message where we've got students being told, oh, it's really dangerous to share things online because you might be representing an identity that you'll regret when you're in the future, and it might wreck your employment and things like that. So really think about what you're doing beforehand. I wonder if that message kind of can also lead to that feeling of, well, maybe I shouldn't share anything if it's that scary or that risky as well.
Perhaps what's even scarier is if you don't engage with if you don't engage with the issues, and you're actually preparing a generation that's going to be mostly insulated and ignorant. That's scary.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you in some ways, Roland. It's just,
here's a picture, I think, of, and this was one of your camera crew, wasn't it? They were doing a lot of the audio recording in the background.
Yeah, and what was weird about that is they worked on the fly with that and never give them any sort of training whatsoever, and they made really basic, horrible mistakes, like in shaky photography, not using a tripod when they could have done. But that didn't matter. That learning on the fly that happened as the conference progressed, they just made the mistakes, and that was gorgeous in terms of learning for me, because they were there making mistakes as it happened, and I was going, look, this content you're giving me is no good. I can't do anything with it. All right, so you need to do this now. Okay, whereas could have done that boring teacher thing and sat down for an hour and went, here's how to use a camera. So it was lovely for them to be able to do things like that. But back to those sort of paradigms we're talking about in that, when we try and put people online, if we do put them online, if we don't put them online, then they're not going to be exposed to that environment. But if we insist they go online to do something, and you've got students who are not comfortable with that, it gets you thinking, oh, hang on, how do we get over that barrier of discomfort then? Because you've still got an issue like Jordan's talking about in that case. That was a big one. And back to the thing you were talking about, Amanda, which was Alec Curris's insistence that you should be leaving a digital footprint that's a positive digital footprint. This has always been my attack on these people who talk about cyber safety and going, oh, everything you do online stays online, so you can't ever do anything bad. That's just a load of rubbish, because everybody's done something bad online. Everybody said something that shouldn't. All I say to students is make sure you do 99 things after the bad thing, because nobody's going to search down 100 things to find your bad thing. They're going to find the first 99 first. So make sure you do 99 good things. I mean, there's certain things you shouldn't do online, of course, but we all make our mistakes. And it was just
students with their own environment. Yeah.
Yeah, he had that perspective of like, you have to get yourselves online now. And I sat there thinking, hang on, I've got in my home group, I've got 2 year 11 students who are going into specific trades, and I've had this discussion with them. I don't think it matters at all to their employers that they're about to go to in the next 2-3 years, whether they're online or not. It won't make a blind bit of difference. So really, does it make a difference for students now? I'm not sure it does, but it's coming quickly that it will matter, but I'm not sure it really does right now. And I began to question myself about that.
I've got another photo here. This one is the keynote circle time, because I thought that worked really well, where you invited the keynote to the MeetUp area where they had a chance to talk with the delegates about some of the ideas, answer some of the questions, and you've even got some of the students there, notice, with the blue t-shirts at the front there, Nick.
Yeah, I thought that worked amazingly well, and I think it's something that I would love to see at other conferences. I think what made it extra special is the fact that the students were there, because they didn't hold back. They didn't pussyfoot around and giving those, ooh, let's have a discussion about theory. They just went, yeah, but what about this?
And I loved that one of the first questions to Alec after his keynote was, it was great what you presented, but I'm just wondering, what has that got to do with education? And it was like, well, yeah, we need that reality check. It was awesome, and it was, really inspiring about the practices and use of social media, but then it was like, oh, good point. And then it led to these really fascinating discussions.
And Alec was still talking about that question the next day when we were chatting to him before dinner about how he was still thinking about okay, well, what are the implications of all of this?
Yeah, you're right, Jackie, and I'm pretty positive that he will go to a next keynote and he will take that on board and he will make sure that he adjusts what he says, because like any good educator out there, you reflect on what you've done and you take back the feedback that you get and you improve on that next time. And if he'd be the first to advocate that sort of approach, and sometimes I sit there and have these discussions with people about what is the value of a keynote? Why do we have keynotes? And being someone who's done keynotes myself, I'm starting to question in my own role. But why do you have them? And if in one of the roles is surely to set some sort of climate for the rest of the conference to open proceedings and set things going along a particular track, set the thinking going, set a particular few courses of ways people should approach the things that are happening right now, as well as bringing all the international perspectives and research that these particular people give. But if it gets too out there, because they're not working in schools at the moment, which a lot of them are not, then sometimes that reality check, I think, can be a wonderful thing, because you sat there in this conference and a significant proportion of people are those people that are teaching in schools every single day, and they're faced with the kid in the corner who doesn't want to do things, the kid in the corner who's throwing chairs at you, the kid in the corner who's 5 miles ahead of everybody else in terms of their learning, and everything else thrown into the mix. So that's the reality of education, and that's the reality of education right now, and for the foreseeable future. You still got to deal with all those things, as well as dealing with, I really want to get everybody online, and I really want everybody to increase their profile immensely and enhance their learning with all the wonderful digital things that are out there. Even if the Australian Curriculum Review is currently pulling the rug from under us in that respect. But yeah.
Funny you should mention it. I
No,
know
we're in the real world, not the IT.
I'll talk about that later. It's actually raised the ire of some of the tech leaders. They're not at all pleased about what they're hearing. We're supposed to be entering an environment of 21st century learning, and here we are mucking around with very strange discussion. I mean, the place of technology in a curriculum is one that is embedded. It's going to be tough, I guess, because we're going to be trying to bring on board different different tensions of different learning areas. But it has changed the role of education, and unfortunately, politicians, parents can't connect with that because it's an environment that's not familiar to them. And even just looking in a classroom, it's going to be tough to try and pick out some of those changes. And that's what I reckon was something I picked out from this conference, is that idea of best practice. I think I'm a better educator now, being able to go back and having spoken with colleagues who've actually been doing this stuff in the classroom, Nick. That's powerful.
It is. Those conversations you have, and I was there for the last 5 minutes only the last 5 minutes. Actually, yours was the only workshop that I saw. 5 minutes of it, rather than the last 5 minutes, and it was quite incredible that people were there sat through yours, where you were talking about technology, computing, programming related ideas, and then my session was related to that as well. And there was clearly a lot of demand and a lot of concerns from educators, from what I could see, regarding the digital technologies angle, the idea of how we're going to approach, issues around computing and the more serious side, if I were to give it that name of IT, as it were, less of the consumption and more of the making, how we're going to approach those sorts of issues. But I think today's review shows that that's a massive step back for anybody who's got any doubts or any issues with the inclusion of ideas like computational thinking and that kind of thing into their curriculum. Anybody who thinks that's going to be embedded across curriculum, that is not going to happen at all.
Yeah, there was a very strong discipline focus in the review, and even just the rhetoric around the curriculum theory and historical analysis was certainly, we have these theories, but discipline knowledge is most important as well. And questions around how do you combine the general capabilities and cross-curriculum priorities and these other subject areas that people worked into the curriculum because they thought they was important and needed to be included. So interesting times ahead. It will be fascinating to see how this is reviewed and taken up.
What does happen with this review then? Is that just a set of recommendations that now get discussed? And how long does the discussion take? And who decides whether they do, the curriculum stays as it is, doesn't stay as it is? What happens now?
That's a good question.
Very good question. I think it comes back to the education ministers in each jurisdiction, and they'll probably gather feedback on the relevance of the reviews, and we'll be faced with another change or revamp over time. So, like normal, we're in a sea of change.
Look, some of the changes we've been asking for, some of the changes they've been working towards have been really good leaps into the future that I'm feeling really confident about. But I'm worried about some of the distracting elements of the review, which is just seen maybe to criticise ad hoc things that others have done. It's an enormous amount of work that's gone into what we've got now. And I don't admit that there's going to be an opportunity for fine-tuning. But if we're serious about being a nation that's got innovators and entrepreneurs and digital leaders, we've got to make some brave decisions about things like where technology fits into the curriculum. Teachers are feeling uncomfortable with it. We need to actually look at supporting them for that. But we can't let the way that perhaps people have been educated 20, 40 years ago drive how we should be teaching people now.
I completely agree with you, Roland, but somebody actually sent me a link today from a media report. I'll try and find you for you in a bit. And the media report was on that curriculum, and the way that they were interpreting it, it was sort of dismissing the issue that it's the teachers that need the training, and that's what's undermining the whole ability to be able to teach much of what the digital technologies, professors that should be taught, and I think those interpretations of what will be carried forward, they'll be the things that matter. Like, oh no, we can't possibly do that because it's a crowded curriculum. We can't possibly do that because it's not needed for any. We don't need to teach anybody any of those things until year 7. And in fact, it doesn't need to be compulsory until it gets to year 10. We don't need any of those things. That'll be the thing that goes forward. Whereas, the reality is what was undermining it all, which should have been said first when I read the review on the digital technologies bit, was the thing that should have been said first is there's a serious need for sustained, or whatever his quote was at the end, sustained. And that's the teacher from Victoria who'd done this analysis. I did also think it was weird that I had one teacher do this analysis of the whole curriculum. One teacher? Oh, that's a bit strange, but anyway. And what it actually said is you need sustained and thorough, training of the teachers, especially at a primary level, to be able to teach this. That's the actual issue, and that comes back to the issue that I've no doubt that you face yourself, Roland, you face yourself, Amanda, and Jackie, you've been exposed to yourself, is that the professional development that teachers have as regards technologies, unless they're willing to get out there and do it themselves, it's far from a thorough and sustained approach.
But this is what we crowd out, the opportunity for students to actually be creative people who can actually use this technology and who can actually work it in a way that's going to be inventive and creative and novel and relevant. These guys that I've got on the screen here, and I hope this is coming across, I showed them how to make the lip sync video. I had all of about 3 minutes, and the chap in the middle, I showed how to run backwards, and the other two guys, how to cue him up and to make sure he wasn't going to hurt himself, but how to also keep the camera trained and what the overall mission was. They learned really fast how to make a lip sync video that became our parody. It was a wonderful learning opportunity for them. I didn't have to sit there and write instruction. I was able to draw upon the popular culture that they were familiar with, and I was able to build on some of the stuff that you've done, Nick. We crowd this kind of stuff out when we try to make up a really regimented curriculum that follows a stepwise instruction. And I think as much as we've begun to change the conference to fit in with the way that we can work in the digital medium, we have to look at making serious changes in the way that schools operate to fit in with the kind of opportunities that kids would like to have for how they engage in technology and how would they like to see using it.
Yeah, I mean, that comes down to wanting to involve students in project-based learning and want to involve students in passion-based learning. And that's the two things that you see happening on that picture and you see are happening at the conference. You had students who are passionate about certain things that come forward and volunteered themselves, and you had students who were involved in a project. And the project, however small it was, well, it was massive to Amanda to make this wonderful music video, but however small that project is, it, if they get their teeth into it, they can learn by doing. They can learn on the job. They can learn, as you say, very, very quickly without any formative instruction. They can fall over and make mistakes, and they can come back and do it again. And they would do, and no doubt Amanda will make sure that it's done again at some time, and we learn by those mistakes. And she has this wonderful video, probably with
I'll
all
hear
the
you
characters.
singing next time, Nick.
No, I'm actually seeing Roland as Hans next time. I could see that happening.
See, I was thinking he'd probably sing Klingon instead, and we'd have to do the Google
No,
play.
I've actually got something even better to share with you, Nick, and it only happened today, okay? After I was distracted by the wonderful Dr. Pamela Gay, astrophysicist extraordinaire, go check out her podcast, awesome. Must get onto the show. I had a chance at that workshop to leave some work for my students, and so I'd written down I'd like them to storyboard their next project production, to organise themselves into groups and to write the things that they would need to have, and I would review that when I returned to class. I only have the students twice a week. Well, this Monday lunchtime I rolled in, and the student said to me, you made the mistake show on Wednesday showing the parody video and showing what the digital leaders did at this conference. I said, what do you mean? Well, we've actually taken a storyboard. We did that in 15 minutes. Trust me, we've got an even better project. The whole class has agreed that we're actually going to organise our own lip sync video. And I sort of suspiciously said, yeah, don't worry, it's all been storyboarded. You'll have to wait till Wednesday. We've booked the theatre. We've also booked all of the iPads and the camera equipment. And we've rearranged the classes with the daily organiser so we get access to the theatre. And we're going to do the recording. But trust us, sir, it's all been organised by the class. We're really excited about it. We've picked the music. We just need your thumbs up on it when we do a dry run on Wednesday, and then we go live with the production. And you had engaged me into sharing that with my students, and they've taken issue. It's kind of thrown my lessons a bit of a tailspin. They've just run ahead to the last big project that we've done, and I love them for it because here as a group saw the example of what your students had done with the photos I'd shared, and Amanda with the video that we'd made, and the making of, and now taking it to the next level. I wouldn't have been felt as comfortable doing it until I'd seen what you'd done there, Nick. And for me, that's one of the things that made it really personal for this conference. It's made a big difference.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's such a great story. That's even better than, internet fame for me, to know that it's inspired those students.
Stop lying. No, it's not. He's lying.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
But it comes down to that quote, doesn't it? If you don't want to learn, nobody can make you. If you want to learn, nobody can stop you.
Absolutely.
Don't we all dream of a class like that, I suppose, where the students take charge, run, be creative, work together, solve a problem. And maybe they were thinking, if we do it quickly enough, then Sir can't change it back, and he won't knock it. But it wouldn't have worked without, to be honest, it would not have worked if, A, I had some positive examples to show them, B, inspired them with the work that you kind of done with your students there, Nick. And we did actually have a look at a couple other videos of some lip syncing and dubbing, and that seemed to grab their interest. And I suppose, lastly, I have to be flexible too in the way I'm teaching to fit in with the things that motivate them. I'm still ticking off the things on my list of what they like to do as digital leaders and with the media curriculum, but I can allow that much slack in the classroom to allow that sort of problem-based learning.
And I wonder if relating that back to the issues that the review's throwing up in terms of the curriculum, and this is an issue that is being faced for a long time in the UK, is when you throw up a national curriculum like that, people start to interpret it and insist that it's telling people how to teach certain things, what to teach and how to teach it. The reality is it's not. It's far more open than what it says it is. But when it comes under scrutiny and when it comes under review and people start to put their own interpretations of it, I liken it to religion. I liken it to the Bible. A Bible's just a set of stories, and you want to believe in it, what you want to take from it. But people interpret it in different ways. And already we're seeing by this review we're seeing a seriously slanted opinion that, as I've already said, is going to be taken forward, and it's going to mean the undermining of certain things. My concern is the technology side of things, and the lack of clarity that's been flagged in the capability side of things, and that will basically just undermine what happens as regards anything to do with digital literacies and anything to do with the skills around computing, which are serious elements that need to be addressed within any forward-thinking curriculum and any forward-thinking school. As was cited in that conference from the people from Google, the amount of shortage in those industries, and people are just not being educated enough to go into those industries. It's not that they don't necessarily have the raw talent or the potential to make it in those industries. They're just not being taught or exposed to the skills or the potential for it to make it happen. And once you've got that issue, then if you're not addressing that within your schools, then the economy is not going to push those people into those sorts of areas and give them a chance to see what they could possibly make themselves in those areas. And the other side of it is you're still going to be faced in a number of years with the same issues with plagiarism. You're still going to be faced with the issue of students not really being able to develop themselves within online spaces because they don't have the digital literacy to do that. They've never been taught it. And we're still going to be at the same place in those respects that we're currently at the moment. And unless, as you already said, Roland, we start to be brave, then you're not going to see any change to both of those things. And that I think that's really, really worrying from what I read today.
Amanda, I wonder if you could reflect a bit on the meetup, or not really meeting up, or at least not the official ones.
The meetup kind of time, there was a space at the conference at the end of the trade hall, and a time within the conference program listed as meetup. Some of it was listed as free form, others had topics. We didn't get too many takers to those events, but it could just be that it was scheduled at a time when there were other awesome workshops and offerings on, or perhaps the concept of a meetup was relatively new and different to people, or the fact that we were trying to maybe formalize it to a space and location, and strange people like us being there to host it, when it was probably actually happening, as Jackie mentioned, a lot in, there were a lot of like little corners of the convention center that had little couches and tables as well, and I quite often saw people discussing things there before flying off to another session, or a referee paper presenter was telling me how she actually had a significant conversation after she presented her paper that kind of reworked her whole conceptual framework that she was working on, and added other aspects of literature, afterwards, which was really kind of great and powerful. And it's those in-between conversations that work really well. But I don't know that we promoted enough the space and place of a meetup as a, hey, come gaggle and reflect. But I think that kind of thing did happen. And really, the fact that people didn't come to our specific space meant that we actually schemed the parody production a little bit more, which was about meeting up. So this kind of cyclical, reflective kind of thing involved there.
You realise that we turned the entire conference into a meetup space?
It is all a meetup space, isn't it? I mean, Jackie was saying that her highlight of being personal was that it was hanging out with the family, meeting everyone, which is really awesome.
It is. I think that's.
And I think it's really hard.
Go, Jackie.
Oh no, I think I've got a bit of lag on me. That's all. I was just going to say, I think it's really hard to formalise something that's so informal like a meetup too. Just thinking ahead for 2016, because I can't stop thinking about these things now. My brain might shut down. Maybe it's something that you do more informally in a teach meet style or a teach eat style somewhere for those people who are out of town. I know there was talk way back about doing the Teach Meet after the welcome reception at one stage. Maybe something like that where, not that we're saying that the Teach Meet's in competition with the rest of the conference, but somewhere where it's given a value, right? This is somewhere where you can go to just keep building on all of the things you've been discussing during the day. Maybe more of a debrief style after the day might be something to consider.
Yeah. The model that Roland and I for 2012 we're kind of basing it on was what even was it called? I think it was like ISTE Unplugged, or there was a unconference. I should know this. An unconference the day before the ISTE conference where there were still other things happening. Yeah. But it was a free-form unconference event. You rocked up there. You said, "Hey, I want to present this," and then they voted for who does what, and it was kind of separate but attached to the overall conference. So it had its own time and space that was separate, and that's kind of where we start from with the 2012, and then it's evolved to become a bit more of within the conference program. So I don't know where to take it next, or where the 2016 people could lead.
I think you're on something there, Amanda. And Tony Brandenburg had a chance to give us a really interesting perspective that perhaps if we were less ambitious with some aspects of the conference, we could have turned that trade show area into kind of birds of the feather, with the breakout areas, with the beanbags, with the meeting places and spaces, and making for a very different conference structure than perhaps one that has a keynote, the conference rooms and a schedule, a meal, schedule, home. And I think that there's some real potential in that. It'd be one thing to have just an informal meetup lounge, but as you notice, people kept dragging the furniture around and making their own little nests.
Which is great.
Well, it is. And I have this theory, actually, that keynote speakers are a little bit like those bowerbirds.
I like bowerbirds. They collect blue things. Go on.
Yeah. And see what they will do. You'll invite a keynote speaker up, and they'll have these pluffing up of their plumage, and they'll wonderful cries, and that will bring the flock of birds around. And then when you retreat them into a corner, they'll begin to arrange the chairs into a circle, and they'll pad that, because actually it's a kind of nesting behaviour, and they'll actually pad that with educators, and then there'll be another little performance there, and everybody will try to sort of watch them lay an egg, and then if it's substantial, then something might grow from that. And you could almost design a trade show area where it's not so much a focus on look at what these corporate users can do. They could form kind of a ring around these nests that we could build. And you know what? It's kind of what we did with ACEC2010. I guess we had more of a larger hall there, but we quickly picked up this is the kind of thing that keynotes like to do. And by rearranging the soft furniture and providing just a few tools, screens, a chance to ask questions, some stimulating free coffee, some meals and snacks, you've got an opportunity then to provide the kind of meetup environment I think can't really run in a corner of a conference. It may have to be something that you put in the middle.
And I like putting it near the food. That's always a good idea. I did like the layout of the trade hall area in the Melbourne conference. I think that was really interesting to have those little spaces where people naturally gravitated to. I think there was probably a gang of people, I may have been involved, using Second Life for some time that may have been related to our overuse of the internet allowance and subsequent need to purchase more. But no, that was really good to have those spaces, and the TVs were great because you could just plug in and share something if you felt like you wanted to, or plug back in the computer that was there to show the tweets as well, which was good.
I like the beanbags. To me, every conference should have several corners filled with lots of beanbags. Just the odd table where you need to balance your laptop and type up your reports, I suppose. I like the birds of the feather. Do you remember that at ISTE, where you had a chance, you had a time and a focus and a problem, and you had a chance to draw a community there. And you'd start off with maybe one person you could rally an interest around. It is easy with that critical mass from ISTE, but it'd be good if a group could actually explore what you could do with that. and a way to probably scaffold that would be to actually, rather than have it directly competing with formal lectures and sessions, actually put some time aside in the conference when you can give that opportunity for people to find a stream they can join into where they're expected to contribute.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I really liked that I was expected to contribute to and did was the EdTech Chef Challenge, which was by...
I hadn't heard about it, what it was?
Sure. So it was Anthony and Narissa, I think that was who... Everything's a blur now. And so what they did, they took the concept from that they saw at ISTE as well. And what you had to do is you went to their workshop. They had 2 times set aside, or actually 3 in the program for this particular project. So you rocked up to their workshop and you had to form a group. And your group was given time to kind of discuss and meet each other. And then we had to select 4 different items from around the room. That could be, I think it was something like school context, budget, which varied from $1 to $100,000, something to focus on, which could have been digital technology or creativity and innovation, and then a problem, which could have been like our group had reluctant learners. So what you did was, as a group, you kind of discussed what ingredients you might like, and then it's a bit like MasterChef. You were given the opportunity to race to the pantry and collect the ingredients that you wanted. So we ended up with these 4 cards, and from that we had to build a project that we would present on the final day, or some kind of initiative that encompassed the 4 elements and actually could be scalable to like schools or environments with like budgets. So my group ended up choosing a P to 12 school or an R to 12, K to 12 school. Creativity and innovation is our focus. Reluctant learners was our context. And there's one more. Oh yes, our budget. We chose $1. I don't know why we only chose $1. So we had those 4 ingredients that we had to work with. And we were working with people we hadn't met before, and we had to get to know them somehow during the conference, meet with these people to plan what we were going to do to wow the audience on the final day. And there was actually some time set aside in the program where we had access to our facilitators to actually workshop ideas, etc. And then on the final day, we had 5 minutes to present, and we had judges who were the keynotes, and I think there was also Donna Gron was one of them as well, and Tina stood in for her for a bit. So this panel had to judge us based on criteria. We had that criteria, and then we had a audience voting kind of arrangement as well. And the idea was that the final group could then present their project to the entire conference audience too. My group probably got a little bit left field with our live drama performance rather than like creating a website or presentation like the other ones did, and we didn't get to showcase our dessert. But other than that, it was really awesome, and it was interesting hearing the reflections of the other groups that we all went through the same kind of cycle of forming our group, not really knowing what to do, kind of assigning jobs, and then going, this is all too much, can we do it? Maybe we'll pull out, no, maybe we can do it, and then finally getting it all together and just going and presenting our idea. It was really awesome to be thrown in at the deep end as a learner. It was kind of a lot to take on with my other commitments during the conference, but it was a lot of fun.
Now, could I steal your attention just to show a few minutes of the actual clip? Have you seen it?
No.
It's only the first couple of minutes, but this is the introduction that Amanda's team had put together where they're rallying up the crowd for their wonderful curriculum idea. So if I can hit play on this one. And I know what's actually happening here. Those guys who are actually organising some of the music, and I'll jump ahead a bit because I don't want to suddenly get tipped by Google.
F12 schools, excellent creativity and innovation. We have a
$1 contestants. You've got $1.
Let's crowdsource. All right.
I love the crowdsourcing there.
Baby Maine. I think I went to the pantry earlier, and so for appetizer, for plating, well, see, what we really wanted to do was to make something that was all centred around our learners. I almost lost a sausage. That's embarrassing. I actually need the aubergine. The aubergine is important.
Cameraman retrieving the aubergine.
So one of the things we really wanted, and this is really important, our appetizer is actually focusing on people. So what we're going to do with our students, we're going to build a core group of interested students. And
just 1 second there. I love the way you've plated that up, and look at that exquisite core.
Yes, the core group of students.
The exquisite core there.
Yeah, it was gold. And what we're going to do with this core group of students and sausages, awkward, is to actually start a spontaneous lunchtime group. We get these people together, and they're going to be our planners. So they're going to use design thinking, and they're going to unpack creativity and innovation and strategies for learning, and they're going to create a trailer for the rest of their school. All right, let's Control A, delete that. New plate, wipe my canvas clean. Okay, so
Thank you, Amanda. That was a lot of fun for me to watch and to film, and I can really appreciate the creativity. You just brought the whole group together. You came up with all those wacky ideas and a plate of food.
Well, luckily for me, the accommodation I was staying at had, in my daughter's room, a range of toys that happened to be fruit and veg in baskets. And I'm like, props, yes, we can do this. Of course, for dessert, we were going to build a tower that was also the trophy for our final showcase event. But that's a whole other story. It was lots of fun.
I wonder if the last question we could consider, what could we do different for 2016? And obviously there's no obligation for the next group to take up these ideas, but hopefully they'll wind back and then they'll peek into our crystal ball as we look forward to 2016. So there we go, Jackie. We're peeking into this crystal ball. We're blowing off the dust and coffee.
On me first. I think it's not so much about what would be done differently, but what would be built upon.
Yeah.
I would love to see more of the student leader stuff happening, because I think that reminds us all of why we're all there. No, you've got me. I'm still recovering from 2014. But yeah, definitely.
Let's put a crystal ball there, Jackie.
Your official report is due next week.
We'd like to see continued, and I guess the student is one of them. Nick, I guess you'd concur with that?
Well, you would expect so, wouldn't you? But I do think I dropped out actually when you were in the middle of the conversation about how you could make meetups work for you, and I think for me, I think Jackie touched on it as well. Is that it's as much about space as it is about anything else, and I think conferences have to seriously address how they involve sponsors and how they involve the trade within that, and how they, how the spaces in terms of going off to hear presentations within certain rooms and then coming back, and the fact that meetups were happening informally all over the place. I think that space, there's not a lot you can do about that really. I don't think in a huge conference area, but maybe a lot of planning in advance. And a lot of thought needs to go into that, how you organise all that space so that it accommodates all the different parties and brings that together. And maybe some of the dynamics of how you, if you are going to bring students into it again, which obviously I hope that happens at the next conference. Does that in fact take away from some of the role of the young conference which you're trying to do? In fact, in a way they take in your jobs. It's kind of strange, but one thing I liked about some conferences I've been to is I quite liked roving mics going around doing this sort of ongoing podcast about what was going on, creating an ongoing back channel in a way of conversation. That's what I tried to do in that video. Now it's personal that I put up. That was quite nice. I think that could be added to. So I think the thought in terms of the space, having some more defined roles as to exactly what goes on in terms of MeetUp and what goes on in terms of student involvement. I think the potential for a more concrete involvement from a larger proportion of the conference in that conversation with the keynote afterwards. Perhaps that comes into promotion. I think those are elements to think of. And I do sometimes wonder how much of my criticism of this conference would be is that it hangs its hat on a very higher educational style of conference in these referee papers, non-referee papers. And I know some of that comes down to the way that the organisation works, but having worked in higher education, that's exactly how their conferences work. I'm not sure that teachers really understand that. I had plenty of questions. What's the difference between referee and non-referee? I'm like, oh, don't ask, just go to whatever, you know. But perhaps there needs to be a little bit of thought that largely the people in the audience are not concerned whether it's hardcore research or not hardcore research. They're concerned whether they're going to learn anything from a practitioner so that they're giving them some examples. So you know, those types of things. They're things that I think could be thought about in greater perspective. I also think that although it's probably not a fault of anybody's, that the cost of the ticket prohibits quite a lot of people. I know there were a lot of local Adelaide people who were turning around going, I am not going to pay that price to go to that conference. That's way too expensive. And although it's lovely to be in these venues, perhaps some of those costs mean that it ends up ruling people out, you know. So maybe that's some things that need to be thought about.
So,
yeah, I think some of the payoff with that might be.
Sorry, you go, Jackie.
Sorry, it was that lag I've got again. I was saying some of the payback might be. It's the dichotomy of, do you make the tickets cheaper by allowing your trade and sponsors more access, so you've got to sit through those sponsored presentations, perhaps, similar to a couple of the other big conferences that get away with those cheap tickets. Because I know that was our battle of how do we get the tickets cheaper but still make it an educational conference by educators for educators was the line we were really serious about. I've now had a thought, Roland, about the one area I would like to see, and from my point of view with publicity, I think the one area that we really didn't hit, and Nick touched upon it, was the common teacher. It's a lovely big family we've got of IT people who are passionate about this, but how can we use these conferences to share our passion with those people who are at the chalk face all the time, who want to gain access to this area. I had a lovely conversation with 3 of the teachers who came from my husband's school, who they were lucky they had a budget where they could send some teachers along. My school had none. We didn't send anybody aside from me. And they were talking about how they'd had their eyes open to another world that was out there. They hadn't seen this aspect of people who were so passionate about their ed tech skills and what the passion that they're trying to put across to their students. And I think for 2016, that is one area I'd really like to see working on, is that we get that passion that we share out there just to everyday classroom teachers.
Yeah, perhaps touching on that, there's a space for more workshops, more demonstration of things in motion. I mean, I know Dan Bowen did a load of stuff regarding makerspaces, and he got the students actually involved in that. The students knocked up a Raspberry Pi, got it operating within about 20 minutes at the back of his room, and he had some makey kits and all that kind of things going on. Just that every day, look at what can happen in your classroom. Your classroom could be like this or like this, and that more than here's what I did in terms of my research. More of that angle. That's what I'm sort of touching on. Having been to higher education conferences and then and secondary level conferences, there's a striking similarity in some respects in the way that this conference is organised. It bends more to that higher education thing, and I'm not sure that a lot of teachers really understand that.
So what you're...
Yeah, I can really see now. I'm just moving my my giant nests out of the way to make up these maker tables in the middle, where people have a chance to play, invent, create, or better still, get some students, put them in the middle of that pit, and get them to actually look at that kind of stimulating environment. Add to that mix a dynamic educator like Gary Stager that actually puts a pedagogical link behind this and gets us about the learning process that's actually happening. And you've got yourself a really creative, reflective space.
You have, and when you talk about sponsorships on that sort of tip, Roland, is that you know, in the last bet that I went to before I emigrated, they had a whole space sponsored by Google, which had a load of students in, just playing various games and then being on hand to help people set up, you know, the various bits of Google and this. So there was no hard sell going on, but it was all a demonstration of this is technology and this is what we do, and that's where you can marry up you can marry up these sponsors, because if you had, you know, there was somebody there with a load of Lego Mindstorms sat on the table, there was somebody at this conference selling it. Yeah, well, if you've got a load of people actually there playing with them and showing their classroom activities with them, you know, the sales happening as well, and that's where the marrying up can happen. And there's far more of them people that you can bring on board, and they don't have to be the company that's producing them, they can be the resellers as well, because I'm sure they'd be interested in being able to display their wares like that. So, and yeah, if you chucked in the mix high-profile educators as well, you know, explaining the theories behind that and how that fits in with the culture and the sort of, you know, the way of looking at education that they're professing, that would make for a marvellous hands-on experience, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to wait for a national conference. We can start thinking around some of these ideas of our state conferences, Nick. Challenging, is very different to the way that we used to working, but I think that's a little more authentic to the kind of creative, maker-driven culture that I think that we're heading towards.
Yeah, I think sometimes we worry too much about authenticity, and we think to ourselves we don't want to align ourselves with certain sponsors because that undermines our credibility. But if you actually, the reality is there's very few of us that are working in schools where we aren't aligned to some LMS or to some particular thing that we're using that we think is good. So why not bring those people on board and go, look, I think that your thing that you're doing is good. I want to stand up and use it in front of people. How about we do it like this? And you can still have it in that trade space, but it becomes more, you know, a more flexible space, which is what we've talked about. It just doesn't become a lot of trade stands and everybody's scared to go in there. So you put the lunch in the middle of it because that brings everybody to it. Other than that, you're going to try and keep away from the trade people. You know, let's have it all put together in more of a flexible space, and I think that's a wonderful, you know, idea in some respects to bring all those elements together and get over this idea of, you know, in one hand we want to make it real for real people and we want to keep it cheap, but on the other hand we need all these sponsors on board.
So it's kind of that bring your own teacher philosophy for the vendors, but also that idea of linking the theory aspects with the practical, or the product aspects with the how this is actually used in the classroom.
It is.
A little bit more as well.
And it's about play. And that's what we all like doing, playing.
I love that. A lovely thought for us to close on. I guess my thought, there's a lot of different threads and ideas, and I hope we don't lose the momentum or in embracing some of those challenging ideas. I hope we're still passionate about the things that we believe in. I was having a lovely read of a blog post by Julie Lindsay, who was talking a bit about some of the ways that she sees the collaboration, the sharing kind of happening with this kind of conference. When we're building those kind of learning journeys, it's about that relationship and rebuilding networks of people. We're coming face to face with really good practitioners, and we make the brave choices to bring those things back to the classroom. When we reach out at a venue like this, it really personalises it and makes you understand that this stuff can move, make a difference. I certainly did. I thought this would take weeks and months, not days, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys at future conferences, and again in 2016, and hopefully before that too. You've helped make it possible, and you've helped make this work, and I have a huge thank you to you both for yourself, that's Jackie and Nick, and the rest of the team. If you could pass on our thanks. it worked. It was wonderful. I'm looking forward to catching up with you again. And I'll throw here to my wonderful co-host Amanda for her closing thoughts.
Thanks, Roland. I think one of the things that was really special to me was what Jackie mentioned, that element of family. And so I wonder how we grow a more extended family of people to engage in our conversations. But, you know, adding to the family, not just people that have exactly the same passion and vision as us, and maybe we can throw into the mix a few different types of people. We've got students now. How about we add in a focus more on leaders and leadership roles, and classroom teachers that are yet to embrace technology, and adding in a diversity of perspectives and growing the family, if you will. I'm really loving the suggestions that Nick has had, and I'm wondering, is the conference, the ACEC conferences, are we trying to do too many things as separate, discrete kind of elements that we could kind of smush a bit together a bit more? Like, we've got our refereed papers, and that is a really strong academic component of the conference. Congratulations to Roland for presenting 2 refereed papers. I only did 1. But that aspect of, well, this is great theory, but what does that mean to a teacher? So are we going to encourage people in their presentations to actually focus on the practical as well, and present it not just to an academic audience of their peers, but think, how could what I'm presenting actually be applied and be built on and make sense to teachers as well? Not that I'm saying teachers don't read academic research. Obviously, we've all jumped into the curriculum review report straight away, so that's exciting too. Now, I must give a quick shout out to Kathy Schrock, who has been watching us very early in the morning from the US. And Kathy, we'd love to have you join us on our panel in the future as well. Any final reflections, guys?
Keep up the great work, and I'll see you all later.
Now, next week we'll have an... Yes, indeed, that Queensland. Oh, wait, I'm from there. Now, next week we have another ACCELN broadcast, and please check out our Wikispaces page, acceln.wikispaces.com, for info in the coming days. If you're part of our ACCE Learning Network community on Google+, we'll invite you to the event so you can come along. And if you have any other suggestions for topics or panelists or people, or if you'd love to join us, let us know. And remember, you can view all of our past Hangout recordings at acceln.wikispaces.com. And a happy Connected Educator Month to the US, Victoria, New Zealand, actually the whole world.
That's right. We enjoy connecting up with you. We enjoy making a difference. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next show. Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.